Hi. Welcome you guys. This is my very first Amazon Live and I'm super excited to be here. It's kind of late at night, but this is when I do some of my best crafting and fun projects. And so I am excited to pop on in. My name's Angela. I am commonly found at midmodernmama.com. And today I'm going to show you how to make this crazy cute little wooden sign. All you need is a Cricut and a few really easy, simple skills. And I'll show you how to use it, how to make this. So we are redoing our mudroom, and our mudroom has this storage area off to the side of it, which our family has nicknamed the Room of Requirement because we're big Harry Potter fans. And frankly, it is actually the place where everything is hidden, which is a quote from the book. So I thought we needed a little bit of a little sign in there. But this is a really simple way to use your Cricut and to make something with things you might have around the house, frankly. So let's take a look and get started. What do you need for this project? So you need some plywood. You can use any kind of wood, actually. The biggest thing is that it has to be smooth. And so this was some scrap plywood that we had hanging around. We always have good plywood. It's got a birch veneer. But in the scroll down below with all the products, you'll see there are several places that on Amazon you can buy plywood in a variety of dimensions. And for this particular graphic, it doesn't matter how big it is, it just needs to be twice as wide as it is tall. So in my case, this particular piece is 6 inches by 12 inches. But you could do any dimension as long as it's twice as wide as it is tall. And there are some 6 by 12 pieces of plywood that are available down in that scroll that would be perfect. Then you wouldn't even have to worry about doing any cutting on your own. So a 6 by 12 piece of plywood. I would not recommend going a whole lot smaller than that for this particular graphic. But for other graphics, you could totally do something super tiny, you can do something gigantic. The principle is all the same. So you need some plywood. You need some vinyl, some sheet vinyl, and in this case my favorite is Oracal 651, which is a permanent kind of vinyl. There are lots of different kinds out there, but that is my favorite to use. You're also going to need a Cricut. Obviously, my Cricut's back behind me. This is just a cut project, not a print and cut project. But you'll see my printer is tucked back there too. This is my crafting area back here. I've got a nice Canon printer, and then I have my Cricut right next to it. They're totally fantastic. You also are going to need a sticky mat for your Cricut, and I'll show you how to do that. And you're going to need an iron, and I'll show you that in a minute too. I love my Rowenta, absolutely love it. I sew a lot, and so it is a really fantastic tool in my toolbox, things to do. So to get started, the first thing that you're going to need to do, oh, there are some other tools too, I should say. You're going to need transfer tape. That's this stuff right here. It comes in sheets or in rolls. I really like the rolls. And I will say, if you're just starting out with a Cricut, get transfer tape that has a grid on it. That is super, super, super important. It helps you keep everything straight, and I'll show you as I'm using the transfer tape what I mean by that. I also have a jar of supplies that I commonly use, and for this project these are pretty important. through and show you. This is a brayer. This and this weeder commonly come with a Cricut, and if you don't have one with your Cricut, they're also available separately. They are indispensable for getting a nice seal on things. I also like this kind of brayer, and sometimes this is more helpful than this is. You can get by with one or the other, but I often have both around. This is a little spatula that's really helpful when you're picking things up off the sticky mat, so I really like this a lot. I also always have an X-Acto knife with me, and I'll show you when I'm weeding. An X-Acto knife and a nice pair of scissors are really, really important. And then a Sharpie. That is very helpful for getting things lined up when you're about to put it down. So those are the little tools that I have that I'm using. And I'm going to switch over to my other camera mode here so that you can watch my work surface. Let's see, there we go. Okay. So here is my standard grip sticking out. And I'm going to get things set up here. Now, the graphic that I'm using is something that I designed myself. And I did it in Photoshop. And then in InDesign. So one of the things I love about a Cricut is that you do not have to have mad graphic design skills at all. Cricut is a super easy tool, and with the Cricut comes what's called the Cricut Design Space. And the Cricut Design Space is a graphic design tool, super easy to use. They have all kinds of fonts, they have graphics, some of it's included, some of it you have to Sorry, I just got a text that we've got two mics going at once and it might be really hard to hear. Let's see if this is better. Thank you for that feedback. Okay, so anyway, the InDesign, or the Design Space, let me show you what that looks like. I have a screenshot for you. So this is what the Design Space looks like when you are in the Cricut Design Space. It is a really, really nice tool, really fantastic. You have all kinds of graphic elements that you can use. There are all kinds of different icons and fonts and everything you need to create something. I personally use Adobe all the time, and so I'm kind of more comfortable creating it there, and then I just export it from InDesign or Photoshop, depending on where I've been working. I export that as a PNG, and then I take it right into the Design Space. But that is a step that I do because it's familiar and comfortable for me. It is not something that's required. You do not have to be a graphic designer to be able to use a Cricut, which is one of the best parts about the Cricut. So anyway, this tool comes with the Cricut. It is web-based, so you can create whatever you need to create in the Design Space. And then you get to the point where you're going to send it to your Cricut and cut it out. And that's what we are going to do right now. So I have this all set up and ready to go. This is what my Design Space looks like right now. And I am going to send it to my Cricut and have it cut out, which will be super duper easy. So let's see. I'm going to send you back to this. Okay. So here we are. You get these mats. They have different grips. With vinyl, you want to use a standard grip mat. And I'm using navy blue tonight because I think it'll be a little bit easier for you to see as I'm working on it. On here, just so that you know, I used, oops, that's not the done one. On here, I used the copper color, the Oracal copper, and I think it looks really pretty. It has a really nice shine and it's slightly glittery, which is really pretty, but I looked at it on camera and I thought, I'm not sure that you're going to be able to see as well using the copper color. So I'm doing it in navy. Of course you could do this in any color, and you can do it in any design. One of the things that I made relatively recently, my grandmother has a kitten who kept escaping from her apartment at her retirement center, and so I made her a little sign. It hangs this way on her door that just asks people to beware that she has a kitten and to try to keep the cat inside. And so it hangs there. So, you know, you could make a sign that says anything you want. They can be super cute, but it's all going to start in the same place. And here we've got our vinyl laid out, and I am going to go put that into the Cricut. Let me get back to this view so you can see. So here's my Cricut over here. Just hop up, slide it into the Cricut, and I hit load. Then I go into my design space on my computer and I hit make it. And one of the things, unfortunately, I cannot screen share right now, which is a little bit irritating, but one of the things that you will find on your Cricut is that it will ask you what kind of pressure you want when you are making. You get to choose the material you're using, and then you also get to choose how much pressure you're using. And I will tell you, when I'm doing letters that are small, like this, those letters, I use, there's a setting where you can add more. And I think that's a little helpful, especially when they're tiny. And when it comes to the part where we're peeling back the vinyl, you'll see that you really want a good clear cut. So I always choose more on there. So once I've made all my selections for the material and how much pressure I need, then I just go back to the Cricut and I tell it to make it. And it's going to go, which is fantastic. So I am curious, there are a bunch of you watching this right now. How many of you have a Cricut already? Let me know in the comments. If you have a Cricut, if you're thinking about getting a Cricut, I would love to know. And it's going to take about 3 or 4 minutes right now for this design to cut, and then I'm going to show you how we pull it apart. So do you have any questions? This is a great time for us to chit chat a little bit. Is late night crafting kind of your thing? I know there are a lot of us out there who are super busy during the day, and this is a really, really good way to unwind at night, which is kind of fun. I have a tendency, I don't want to work at night. I want to do stuff like this because otherwise I can't sleep. So but I find making stuff to be incredibly relaxing. Ooh, somebody just told me that their wife loves their Cricut. That's fabulous. Though I will tell you, I know a bunch of guys who also really love their Cricuts. So have her give you a tutorial on how to use it, because it's super fun and really easy. And there are some really cool things that you can do to personalize gifts or whatever. So have her teach you how to use the Cricut. It's really fun. In our family, I tend to do some more crafting stuff, and my husband really enjoys woodworking, so we kind of work well together and partner well together. Ooh, RN's Nana is looking to get a Cricut. Well, I will tell you, RN's Nana, and I am not, Cricut isn't paying me to say this at all. I just want you to know it is a good time to get a Cricut. They just introduced the Maker 3. I have the Maker 2, which I totally love, but the Maker 3 is going to be amazeballs. It will cut things as long as 12 feet, which I think is really, really cool. Right now, with the smaller Cricuts, which are totally fine, you are confined by the size of the mat, and the new Cricuts aren't going to use mats. That's one of the really cool innovations. So you're not going to be confined, and it will go as long as 12 feet. So if you are into home decor and want to put murals up or something like that, it's going to be really, really cool. Chiquisha, is it Chiquisha? I'm hoping I'm saying that right. Your daughter just got one to do, and a printer to do shirts. I am super excited for you. That is fantastic. Oh, I have not done any shirts, and that is kind of on my bucket list of things that I need to do. I don't like vinyl on shirts, but now they have the infusible ink, which is super duper cool. So I need to get on that and see what all of that is about. I largely do things like labeling. I can show you. I'm a little obsessive about labeling. And I'll show you. I have all of these bins with, this is how I use my Cricut. It is a giant label maker. So I have all these bins in my art studio here, and each one of them is labeled with words, what's in the bin, all done on my Cricut. So I have a whole wall full of bins that are labeled like this, which is very fun and helps me find what I'm looking for really easily. I love that. Absolutely love it. Oh, and hats and cups too, Chiquisha. That is fantastic. Very exciting. Oh, I can't wait to see. Are you going to open an Etsy store or something? That's super cool. I know there are lots of people who are using Cricuts in tons of really fun ways, and it is a very exciting thing. So if you can see behind me, the Cricut is working away, and I wish I had a camera where I could show you, but the way this works is that there is a little tiny blade, and the mat scoots in and out, and the little blade traces out whatever the design is that you have inputted. And there are ways to do this where when you're making something you can have multiple colors, and in the design space you can divide it out so that this part of the design is cut out of one color, and this part is cut out of a different color, and this cut is cut out of a different color. You can also do things where you print something out on, if you can print something out on your printer, and you do what's called a print and cut. So like this is how you can make stickers. For my son's Valentine's this year, he drew this cute little dragon. Super fun. And I printed those out on printable vinyl, and then ran them through the Cricut and turned them into stickers. And we put like 4 of them into an envelope for each of the kids in his classroom, and those were his Valentines this year, and they were super fun, and the kids evidently loved them, and the stickers were all over everything in the classroom, and that's the way it goes. But super fun, homemade stickers. Stickers are super easy to make on a Cricut. So everything is cut, and I just tell it to release. And now I'm going to click back to the other camera view so that you can see what we do next. Okay, so you can't see anything because it looks the same, but if you look really carefully, you can see that that design is all cut out. and ready to go. So this next step is super fun. I actually really like this. I find this very relaxing, but it's called weeding. So I always take it off the mat. Some people like to weed when they're on the mat, but I prefer to take it off personally. And the next thing that I do, because I have to be thrifty and frugal, is I always look and cut off the part that's not used, if there is a part. So this design is all up at the top here. And now I have half a sheet of vinyl, which I tuck right back into my drawer where I keep vinyl. And I can reuse it. And if I had, tonight, if I had had a half sheet of this, I would have just loaded that right up at the top of my mat and just gone with that. You do not have to have a full sheet. In fact, I have designed things where if I, like those labels that I was showing you earlier, if I only have one word, and I save scraps that anything more than about an inch by an inch, I save because I can use that. And I hate to be wasteful because of course this is money. So, so I am really careful to be as frugal as I possibly can. So now we're going to go through and we're going to take out the parts that we don't want. Black Barbie 71, thank you so much for following me. I really appreciate that. And anybody else, if you want to know, if you want to follow along, I would love to have a follow from you. So this is what it's going to look like in the end. So this is the vinyl, and we're going to take away all of that negative space. Whoops. All of that negative space. And this just popped right off, which is shocking. And reveal just the design. So let's do that. And here's where all of those funny little tools come into play. So this little hook right here, it looks like a dental instrument in my opinion. This is for weeding. Most people call this the weeder. And that's what this process is. And I'm going to give you a couple of my top tips for weeding. So the first thing is I always start in the big places first, because first of all, you kind of get that instant gratification, but also you want to get as much of that out of here. And here's where those scissors come in handy. So here's all these little words down here, and this is going to be the harder part to weed. So as I'm pulling this up so that those little words don't tear, those letters don't tear or get stuck or anything like that, I am just going to separate this, and every once in a while I'm going to come in and snip. Okay, so here, like there, you can see that owl start to emerge. And this is the broomstick. I didn't even ask, are you guys Harry Potter fans? I know our family is big time Harry Potter fans, for sure. So here again, I'm just going to snip. And this is just to preserve what I'm not pulling off and just make it a little bit easier. I also, like, I have all this vinyl right here. So I feel like this is super dangerous to have much more than that on your fingers at any point in time, because once it sticks to itself, it's really, it can cause big problems. So I'm just really careful and pull off a little bit at a time. And right here, the E in the came up as I was doing this. So I'm going to roll it back down, stick it back on. Oh, come on. And I think my knife is getting a little dull in my Cricut, which is why I'm having trouble with this. But there we go. So that is something that as you think about having a Cricut, one of the things that you'll have to know is that well, it depends on how often you use your Cricut. But every once in a while you will have to replace the blade, just like with any knife. It can't be sharpened. It's not like your kitchen knife that can be sharpened. I've lost that E, but I'm just going to move on because this isn't the one that I'm actually going to use. If it was, I would go back and very carefully save that. And also I wouldn't be talking probably while I do this. This is great to do while you're listening to a movie, like Harry Potter, or a TV show late at night after the kids are asleep. So you see, we're just revealing very carefully that negative space. Okay, so here again, I've got, this is going in several directions. So I'm going to snip, 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 and keep going here. Snip, pull that away. It's so gratifying as the words start to come out or whatever it is that you're doing. I'm going to do another live in a couple of, I don't know, weeks probably. And I'm going to show you how to make one of my favorite little kids' birthday gifts to give, which is a clipboard, a personalized clipboard. And this is another place where like you can use all the fun tools in the Cricut creative space, and it's just super fun and easy and super inexpensive to make, and kids love them. So that's another project that's coming up. All right, so there, look at that. It's kind of like magic. You get to a point where suddenly like the whole thing lifts away, and that's super fun. So, and then you come back in with this little hooky thing, and you pop out the centers of these room. And this really helps to have a nice light, especially if you're working in a dark room like I am tonight, so that you can see where all those little spots are. But there we go. So that's the big stuff. I always start with the big stuff because it's the easier part. And now we're coming into the littler parts. And I have this, you can't see it very well, but there's a border here. It's a line that underlines the word requirement. And I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm just going to slit up to that. Not all the way through it, obviously, but this is going to help me get this part out and leave this part all as one. And I'm going to show you how to handle those. The trickiest part is when you have a bunch of little words, and that's what this is. All right, so here's the hook, that weeder, and I'm going to pull this up, and I put the weeder on top of each individual letter as I pull. And I'm right-handed, so I put the weeder on with my right hand and I pull the vinyl with my left. And I just go super slowly and carefully. And those little words come up, and then I snip in between every word because those little letters can be really tricky if you lose track and suddenly like you've lost an E in the middle of it or something like that. So just holding this there, place. And I just go word by word. I'm hoping you can see this. I also have a tendency to flip it and pull. See how I'm working? I'm working it sideways. And I'm just going to do one more word here, and then we'll let this go since I already have one completely weeded. And I can show you. So it is not a hard thing at all to do the weeding. And sometimes, depending on your design, you may end up weeding for, like, you may end up pulling out the letters and you're leaving. I'm just going to stick this here so you can see. You might be weeding in the opposite direction. So weeding for you might mean pulling out each individual letter and leaving the outline. It depends on what you're doing and how you're, what you're creating, but both ways work. Either way. And just so you know, if you've never dealt with sheet vinyl before, this is basically a giant sticker. It was 12 by 12. The Cricut cuts out, but when you put it on the vinyl setting, it doesn't cut through the backing. Even with the more pressure that I told you I like to use on vinyl, it doesn't cut through the backing. So you have this, it is basically a giant sticker now. And it's on that slick waxed kind of paper on the back of it. So once you have it completely weeded, it will look like this. And now we are ready to transfer it. So this is where you will need a roll of something called transfer tape. And this is kind of the crazy part about all of this. So you're basically going to take the sticker, you're going to put it on a piece of clear tape, and then you're going to put it onto the wood. And so the first thing I'm going to tell you is that transfer tape can be used more than once, more than twice, sometimes 3 or 4 times, or even more. So don't be tempted to just throw away your transfer tape the first time you use it. And the second thing is, I would definitely recommend buying transfer tape that has a grid on it. And my favorite transfer tape is in the carousel at the bottom. It's this kind of transfer tape, and I really like this. It works very well, and I get really good results from it, which is fantastic. So, and the other thing to do to make sure that you have done before you get to this point is to take your take your wood, whatever kind of wood you're using. I am using plywood. Like I said, I had scraps of plywood hanging around that we just cut to these dimensions. But in the carousel below, there are people who sell pre-cut plywood right here on Amazon. And so you can absolutely just buy something that's already done. But even if it's already done, I would take some 120 grit sandpaper and just give it a good go, because you want a really smooth surface, and you also want it to be oil free. And that is really important. You never know what has kind of been in contact with wood. And so whether you are working with a piece of wood that's really rough and you need to sand it down, or if it's already smooth, but you want to just make sure that it's nice and smooth and super clean. So a good sanding, I use our power sander, and then wipe it down with a wet cloth and make sure you get all of the sawdust and any debris off of it, because that will make sure that your vinyl gets a really, really good contact with that wood. Okay, so now we've got that taken care of. Your surface is ready to go when you're ready, when you've got this done. And so now we're going to put this onto the transfer paper. And the transfer paper, this is another kind of tricky part. The nice thing is it's about the same dimension as the sticker. That doesn't always work out that way, but in this case it did. It did, which is really nice. And I will tell you, here's a little trick. You can't always make it work this way, but I work really hard to either have a perfectly straight horizontal line or a perfectly straight vertical line in my design. And you can do that with a font. Like if you've got a big enough letter right here, that's a perfectly straight line. And you can line up the grid with that, and that will help make sure that your entire design is straight on the transfer paper, which helps you make it straight onto the wood. But either way, I ended up like, this is not actually straight. It's a lovely little line, but it's curved and kind of wonky. But you could, in this design, you also have the handle of the broom, which as I laid it out, I made sure that it was perfectly horizontal. So here's another line. I've got a horizontal and I have verticals that I can line it up against. And not every font is going to be perfectly straight up and down if you're dealing with words. But in this case, this one is. So when you're putting together your design, make it easy for yourself. That is the biggest trick here. Make it easy for yourself and plan a horizontal or a vertical line to help get things straight and lined up. All right, so in this case, we're going to use the broomstick as a horizontal. Don't peel off the whole backing on this. Transfer tape is sticky, but not super duper sticky, because you have to be able to get that sticker off again. So I peel off a little part of it, and if I look at this, I think I want that broomstick to line up with this particular line right here. So I'm going to kind of peel back to that line and then fold. See how I haven't pulled it all the way off the paper yet? And I'm going to get this broomstick handle lined up. Just hold your breath. I chose the wrong line, but we'll pick those up in a minute. All right, so now I am going to use my brayer. Trying to make sure you can see this. And I'm going to smooth from the middle down. And this just helps make sure, first of all, that this transfer tape stays lined up and it stays straight. But it also makes sure you don't have any giant air bubbles in there, because you're going to have to get those air bubbles out in a minute. And if you miss, I was off by one line when I lined that up. I'm not sure how I did that, but you'll see I missed the very tops of those. So here's a super simple trick. You do not have to start over. In fact, you really can't. Just snip a little piece off the end and then come back over, line it up, and tape it over the top. There. And that will pick those letters up. Okay, so now I'm going to use my brayer here. Oh, I've got the owl ears too that are popping up. You could do it without doing this when you get really skilled, but I am not. I don't like to leave things to chance like that. So I just pop that on. You can also, if you don't have a rolling brayer, which is one of my favorite tools ever, you can also use this kind, and you're going to scooch that down, and you are getting the air. You're doing two things by doing this. You're getting air bubbles out so that the transfer tape is stuck to the vinyl. But you are also really making a good connection between the adhesive on the transfer tape, which, like I said before, is a little bit weak because you then have to be able to take it off again, and the vinyl. Rosie S., thank you so much for following. I really appreciate that so very much. Are there any questions while I am scooching away at this and getting this all spread down here? I am happy to answer questions. Thank you, baby girl, for following too. I appreciate it. I love all these night owls. Or maybe you guys are on the West Coast where it's not so late yet. We're out in Hawaii. Oh, if you're in Hawaii, you are so lucky. We're in Alaska. Or maybe you're just a night owl like me. Okay, so that should be good. I've really made sure that I've gone over every one of those letters to make sure that it's stuck to that transfer tape. And please don't forget, I love to answer questions if you have questions. Okay, so now we're going to pull the backing off of this. And so you can buy transfer tape in a couple of different colors. It comes in white. That's not very transparent. I really love this transparent because you can see as you're pulling it up what has stuck and what hasn't, and you can go back and make a quick correction if you need to. The other thing I'm going to do before I do that is I'm going to line this up on my piece of wood. So I designed this so that it was pretty straightforward to line up, but I'm going to use that Sharpie and mark the corners of the wood where I want them on the transfer tape before I go to stick it down. And that way we're not guessing about making it straight. So I just fold over that corner. Oh, and I don't have a corner up here, so but that's fine. We have 3, and honestly, all you really need are 2 to get it really well lined up. Okay, so now we're going to peel off the transfer tape along with the vinyl. And if you have something that doesn't want to peel off, just rub at it. The lower part of the R does not want to come off. So I'm going to just come at it with my brayer here. And so I can see right away as I'm rolling this really carefully and slowly if anything is sticking to the white that should be coming off onto the clear. And just work this super, super slowly, watching and making sure everything is going to stick. And it is not a problem. If it doesn't stick, just kind of lay that part back down and go back over it again, and then it'll stick. And sometimes if you've reused your transfer tape a couple of times, this is where you start to see that, oh, it's not quite as sticky as it used to be. And that can be maybe a little less effective, but it's still, I would say I will use this piece of transfer tape probably 3 or 4 more times before it's not sticky enough to be effective. And even then, I might cut it into smaller pieces and use it for small things before I actually get rid of it. So Okay, so this is the moment of truth. You're going to want to work it very slowly and very carefully, just like we did there. And the other thing you can do, and in fact, I'm going to recommend that we do this. You've already taken all of this off. You've kind of released that seal. Go and just very lightly stick this back on. Really, I mean, just super lightly. And all this does is keep all that stickiness from getting stuck in the wrong places. And then we're going to peel it off bit by bit. So now, line up those corners again. Okay, so that has a nice seal there. And the transfer tape is helping to keep that vinyl stuck down really well. Okay. And now we're just going to roll this. And I'm trying to get this so that you can see. This is where a brayer or something like that comes in really handy. And because I've already unstuck everything, the letters should stay on the transfer tape and not come off. But just watch ever so carefully to make sure that that doesn't prove me to be a liar. But we've got everything on nice and straight. It's all coming off like this. Here we go. And we just go really slowly. And I love a rolling brayer like this. And I'll tell you, when I put the materials list together for this project, there was a brayer that was had a prime deal. So if you're looking for a rolling brayer, this is potentially a great time to get one. All right, and there we go. Okay, so now, once again, we roll and go over this really, really well. And I am also going to take this opportunity to tell my iron to turn back on, because we'll be using that in just a minute. I want it to be hot. Okay, so now we are going to go over each and every one of these letters really carefully. I do not like using super skinny fonts like this when I'm doing a lot of Cricut projects, because those fonts don't have a whole lot of surface area to stick to things. But using the iron is the trick to getting around that. And when we iron it down, those letters are not going to come off at all. Once they are stuck, they are stuck. There's no trouble with like this owl and the broomstick, and you know, the R's are good, but these skinnier letters sometimes there just isn't a whole lot of surface area, so you sometimes have to use some tricks to get it to stick down a little better. Okay. All right, so now we're going to do the same thing we did before. But we're going to go really, really slowly again. So I'm going to work one word at a time. And remember, I took a little piece and made a patch here. So I'm going to take off that piece first. Pull that one up. Perfect. And pull this one up. Very good. And I saw that little owl's ear pop up just a little bit, so I'm going to roll over it again. Make sure it's really adhered down. Tuck that away. Sharon Adkins, I'm so thankful that you are now following. Thank you so much. All right, so now we're going to work from one end to the other and just roll this up and go super carefully. I often use the brayer again and just scooch along here. Just a little extra pressure. Always watch for like the eyes, the dots on eyes especially, or like if you have punctuation marks at all, watch those. There. Can be a little bit nerve-wracking, but just keep going. It's kind of like just keep going. There. Now, those are down. I don't see any major air bubbles. I'm going to stick this back on there so I can use that again at another point. But that looks pretty darn good. So now we're going to make it permanent. And I absolutely love this technique because it turns what looks like vinyl into what looks like paint. And that is super, super fun. So first go through and really double check and make sure you're going to look and see, are there any air bubbles, anything obvious? And here's another thing about using the iron. It'll fix all of that, which is really nice. So I'm just looking to make sure there aren't any flaws, but I don't see anything. So now, move this over here. So I have this, if you do not have one of these and you do a lot of sewing, crafting, whatever, you need to get this. It's a wool ironing mat. It's just a really thick piece of wool. And it turns any surface that you have into an ironing board, which is so fabulous. So when I'm sewing, I can put it out on my work table and not necessarily have to have my ironing board out if I'm doing something small. I absolutely love it. It's also in the carousel below too. It's kind of my favorite, one of my favorite things. All right, so my iron is pretty hot. Okay, so I have this set, just so you know, not on steam. So the steam is turned off. And it's on the wool silk setting, so it's like as high as it will go, but no steam. So that's important. You really don't want to steam this. And then I have an old towel, not something with texture. If you do this like with a terry cloth towel that has texture in it, you can end up with kind of dimples in your vinyl where that texture was. Maybe you like that look. For this, in this case, that's not what I'm going for. But basically what we're going to do now is melt this onto the wood a little bit. And you don't want to melt it so much that like you lose the shape or something like that, or that it starts to burn or stink. That's really not good. But you're just melting the vinyl into the wood just a little bit, and it will pick up some of the texture in the wood, which is very cool. Okay, Charmed Chick has a question. I am super excited about this, Charmed Chick. You just got your very first Cricut. Yay! That's fantastic. I am using Oracal. This is Oracal 651. And you'll find that that vinyl has a series of numbers on the back. 651 is the most permanent vinyl there is. And I'll tell you, I am not somebody who has an Etsy store or anything like that. I do stuff for my family and, you know, for gifts and things like that. This is the only kind of vinyl I have, is the Oracal 651. It's what I use all the time. And it comes in, I want to say like 30 colors, tons of different colors. This is a really pretty dark green. It's kind of hard to tell. This is a navy blue. The first one that I made is in this coppery color, which is kind of metallic. It's super pretty. But it comes in all kinds of colors, and it comes both in rolls and in 12 by 12 sheets. So what I use for this project is 12 by 12 sheets. But if you bought the new Cricut, I don't know, Charm Chick, did you get the Maker, or the Maker 3, the brand new one? If you got that, it may make more sense to buy rolls, because you're going to be able to do things with or without a mat. Whereas if you got the older version of the Maker, which is what I have, you'll need to use a mat, and then sheets or rolls, either way, totally works. So anyway, okay, so let me know. Oh, you got the Air 2. Fantastic. Oh, thank you so much for the compliment too. That's so sweet of you. I really appreciate that. Okay, so now we're going to make this look like paint. I'm super excited for you. I hope that you really love having a Cricut. So I'm going to use, I've got this old dish towel. It's clean. Doesn't look clean, but it is. And I've doubled it over. And I'm putting it over the top. And I've got a nice hot iron. And just start ironing. And like I said before, the point here is that you're just kind of melting that into the wood. You could do this with a heat gun too. I don't tend to use a heat gun in the house. It frankly heats up the house too much. So I tend to use an iron. But you could use, if you've got a heat gun, go for it. You could do it with a heat gun as well. But you just go slowly. You don't want it to get too hot in any one place. That is pretty important, because it can start to burn and melt. So you can go over it again and again in different layers, or different passes. It's probably better to do multiple passes over it than to just sit in one spot for a long time. And we're just melting it ever so slightly into that wood. And I'm going to take this moment to remind you guys, I would love for you to follow me. That will give you a notification the next time I come and do something. And one of my upcoming lives that I'm going to be doing is all about our stock tank pool, which I will tell you saved our summer last year. We put together a stock tank pool last summer in our backyard. It was amazing, and I'm going to do a live about, first of all, how to do it, because it's super easy, super easy, and how to take care of it, which is also super easy. Ours is chlorinated, just like a big pool would be. We live in Colorado. It makes zero sense to have an in-ground pool here, really. But a stock tank pool is like perfect. And we are out there daily, almost every day, multiple times a day, right now. It is fantastic. So I'm starting to feel like this is, I wish you could see, maybe you can on the owl. You start to see the grain of the wood just ever so slightly through the owl, and that means you're, or through the vinyl. So that means you're getting there. And it's kind of warm to the touch, but not hot. So then I'm just going to go over it again. And do a little more. Where are you guys from? I'm so curious. Let me know in the comments where you are joining from. Who's up late at night, or maybe it's early morning for you on the other side of the world. Who knows? Okay, so this is nice and hot to the touch. So I'm going to pull this back, and then I'm going to run over it with my brayer again. And we're just kind of getting that really good melty contact with the wood. And the end result is that this looks like it's painted instead of looking like it's vinyl stuck to wood, which I really love. But you haven't had to endure the pain of actually painting and using a stencil and painting it all out, which, yes, you can do that. And there are some people who are super talented. I do not have time in my life to do that kind of thing. This is far easier. Spend an hour and don't have to worry about messing it up nearly so much. All right, so I'm not sure. Let me adjust my light a little bit and see if I can, well, adjusting it by turning it off is not helpful. Not sure if you can see, but, oh, right there in that shine, you can see it. You see how the grain of the wood is just coming through that vinyl, and it really does, if you were here in person, it really does look like these words are just painted on, and it's so nice. So there are a couple ways you can finish this. If you want to hang it up, you could, if you're making a sign. And like I said, this is just one design. And this graphic will be available for free on my website, midmodernmama.com. You'll be able to download it and use it anytime you want. You could, if you want to hang it, put 2 holes, use a drill, put 2 holes right through here, and then use rope or ribbon or anything like that to hang it. I think I will probably put a picture hanger on the back, or maybe even just kind of lean this I have a particular spot in our room of requirement where I think this is going to go. But there, you can do whatever you want to do. I think they look super cute, kind of leaning up on the mantle in your house, or hanging on a wall, or hanging on a door. Like I said, I've done this before for my grandmother. She has one that hangs on her door at her apartment that reminds people to keep their cat inside. I have a cute graphic, which I'm also going to put up on my website. That'll be a free download for asking people to wear masks. This would be, you could just hang this right on your door where you might put a wreath, and do the same thing and remind people to wear a mask if you've got somebody who's vulnerable in your house right now, for when they come. A whole variety of ways that you could use these cute little signs. I think they make great gifts. So anyway, I am so grateful that you joined me tonight. I hope that you have a good evening, you get some good sleep, and I thank you so much. Enjoy your Cricut. I'm super excited for those of you who have new Cricuts. That's so fun. I hope that it all goes well. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask for sure. But thank you so, so much for spending a little bit of your Monday evening with me. And I hope to see you again soon. Be sure to follow and you'll get a notification next time I'm doing a fun video. Thanks so much. Bye.